Hi everyone! So it's time to talk about the book I've been reading over the past couple of weeks, which is Sense and Sensibility by Jane Austen. I bought this absolutely gorgeous Penguin complete novels of Jane Austen collection. Put the right words in the right order, Becky. Last I can't remember if it was last year or it was earlier this year, and I absolutely love it, and I picked it out in a jar. So I began reading it a couple of weeks ago. Now it's taken me a couple of weeks to read this because my head's been in a bit of a funny space. My sister's been kind of experiencing of late that she's saying, like, since The Woman in White, she's found it really difficult to pick up a book because books aren't grabbing her attention like The Woman in White did. And I've been kind of feeling the same way over the past couple of weeks, because let me break it down for you. Okay, so I'm on leave now for the Cheltenham Literature Festival, the 10-day festival, so I've had, lots of stuff to make sure is done before I went on leave. I have the weekend away to Oxford, a wedding with that my family and I attended in Oxford, so I had that as well. I had my writing group, so I had that as well. And every time, and Lethal White as well, because I had that, a bit of a funny week with reading Lethal White. So I went from, if you think about it, the last two books that I've read, the Gianni Versace book, which was great, and then Lethal White, which I just, oh my god, I loved it. So I was on this like massive, oh great, high, da da da, came to read, and then I just went, ooh, this is weird. I don't know if it's because of the genre. I just couldn't get into Sense and Sensibility, and of course I was doing my writing, I was doing work stuff, I'm going, to Oxford and all that lot. I mean, it felt like my brain was in a bit of has been in a bit of a wrong state for the past couple of weeks. So much so, pretty much in that first week, I read like 30 pages of a 220-page book, and I was like, okay, all right, I've got to get my head in the right space. And over the last like 4 or 5 days, I have had to force myself to read, to get this review to you guys, but also to try, just to try and give me a relaxation, as it were, in an evening, to break my mind from going, okay, to-do list, what have I got to do in work before I go on holiday? What have I got to do this? Da 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 da. So, reading has never really been a chore for me, but I have felt that it's been a chore with reading Sense and Sensibility. That's got nothing to do with the writing or anything. It's just I think as I went from a crime-related non-fiction, big crime-related non-fiction, to a big related crime fiction, I was really hyped up and buzzed, and then suddenly I have the drop, and it took me a while to clamber back from the drop. So it's been a really difficult 2 weeks to read this book, and I haven't had a good time reading it. I have slogged through it. I forced myself to finish this book. I think maybe because because I've got this holiday now from work, I can just take each day as it comes. I'm very chilled. All that stuff, the wedding, the trip to Oxford is out the way, it's done, which was stunning, by the way. I absolutely loved Oxford. It's kind of, I've got nothing, I haven't got a to-do list that in my mind constantly, like, barking at me. And because of that, I feel in a completely relaxed state of mind to start reading Pride and Prejudice. But I wasn't in that state of mind throughout Sense and Sensibility, which is kind of a shame. But at the same time, I have read Sense and Sensibility before, as you may have seen from video about Jane Austen that I did with my sister. I've read 3 of the Jane Austen novels before, which were Sense and Sensibility, Pride and Prejudice, and Emma. So because it was a reread, I felt myself going, okay, it's okay that I wasn't able to get in the, you know, romantic tea, having tea and such, and glances across a ballroom in such state of mind. It's okay that I had that step back, but I think it's really worth acknowledging that I had this state of mind where I went, oh no 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 no, don't like this, don't like this, because if I don't, I'm not being honest with myself. I could then, if I didn't explain that, I could then say, oh yeah, Sense and Sensibility was really crap for me. And then you guys could think, oh, Sense and Sensibility is crap. And it's not crap. It's just the when I was reading it, my brain was going, no, 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 you're not allowed here. Jane, go away. Go away. So, yeah, it's been a really weird couple of weeks of reading. I think also it doesn't help with my writing. I've gotten back into my writing, and I'm having my characters go through a very, very dark situation. So I'm now constantly having these weird dark thoughts in my head, but they're dark thoughts relating to my character, not to me in my life. I'm perfectly happy. But it's, stuff to do with work, stuff to do with personal life, stuff to do with writing, and it all just built up and built up. But when I finally got time free to read, and I'm going, oh, I can read, my brain was going, no, I'm not having it. And it happens. It happens. So that's 6.5 minutes long that I've been babbling. I'm so sorry about that. About how my head has been for the past couple of weeks, but yeah, without explaining that, I could say, some really negative stuff about Sense and Sensibility, which isn't really true to how I feel about this story, because I really like Sense and Sensibility. It's a really interesting story. So 7 minutes in, if you don't know the story of Sense and Sensibility, basically it follows the Dashwoods. So there's the mother, Mrs. Dashwood, the three daughters, Eleanor, Marianne, and Margaret, and they, at the beginning of the book, their father dies. The three girls are the products of a second marriage, and through the first marriage of their father, he had a son. So even though they are his children, because there is a son from a previous marriage, the son gets their house, all their money, everything. So they're left kind of penniless because of their father's death. And so they have to move to this little cottage and start a new life. And it's all about the relationships that they form, the men who they meet, of course, because this is Jane Austen, the complicated, hassles with developing a romantic relationship, trials and tribulations along the way, and obviously what happens to them. The two dominant sisters are Eleanor and Marianne. Margaret is much younger. She's about 12, 13, and they're like 17 or older. So it's oh no, I think Eleanor's about 20 or something, 19, 20, and Marianne is about 17. So so there is quite a gap. So Margaret is there, but she's always like looking at her atlas or flying a kite or something like that, doing lessons, that kind of thing. And so it's mainly following these two girls. Eleanor and Marianne are quite different. Eleanor is the eldest. She takes on the responsibility of the family and all this lot. She's very practical, and she kind of takes control of the house in a sense, while her mother grieves and everything. And she's a very reliable, really lovely girl who deserves a good life. She deserves, a good love in her life. And Marianne, the youngest, is in love with love. She loves poetry. She's kind of, oh my gosh, that was so beautiful, and Shakespeare, and anything to, she says, I really love the line, is in the film version where she says, why can't love be like Juliet and Guinevere and all this lot? And um, the mother says something like, "Oh, well, they had rather pathetic endings or something." And she says, "To die for love, how can you say such a thing? What could be more glorious?" She's very romantic, and she gets swept off her feet by this boy, the man, shall I say, called Willoughby, who rescues her in the rain when she twists her ankle. I mean, what's more romantic than that? And it's all about the trials and tribulations and things that happen to them, the people who they meet along the way. It's not a long book at all. It's 220 pages. And what really interested me when I came to reread it, and like I said, I was kind of forcing myself through it, was I forgot how little dialogue is actually in Sense and Sensibility. Now, Jane Austen is like the queen of writing witty dialogue and such. She's wonderful at it, but she doesn't do it that much in Sense and Sensibility. And to give you a for instance, 30 pages in is when Marianne meets Willoughby. And she sees that Colonel Brandon's coming for a visit and she doesn't want to talk to him. So she and Margaret go off for a walk and they get caught in the rain and she falls over and she meets Willoughby and he checks her ankle out and he picks her up and says, "Right, can I take you home?" and all this lot. Jane does all of that, which I've just said to you, in the space of a page and a half with no dialogue. And it's like, that's a lot of information, but she gives you so much information with very little dialogue in this book. I don't know if that's a sign to say that it's a first book, but I love the dialogues that when she has it. And here's an example in chapter 13, where basically the group of friends, where people that they've met are meeting together for like a picnic thing, and Colonel Brandon has been sent a message, and this is just a bit of dialogue going back and forth. "What's the matter with Brandon?" said Sir John. Nobody could tell. "I hope he's had no bad news," said Lady Middleton. "It must be something extraordinary that could make Colonel Brandon leave my breakfast table so suddenly." In about 5 minutes he returned. "No bad news, Colonel, I hope?" said Mrs. Jennings as soon as he entered the room. "None at all, ma'am, I thank you." "Was it from Avingdon? I hope it's not to say that your sister is worse." "No, ma'am, it came from town and is merely a letter of business." "But how came the hand to dispose you so much, if it was only a letter of business? Come, this won't do, Colonel. So let us hear the truth of it." "My dear madam," said Lady Middleton, "recollect what you were saying." "Perhaps it is to tell you that your cousin Fanny is married," said Mrs. Jennings, without attending to her daughter's reproof. "No, indeed it is not." "Well then, I know who it is from, Colonel, and I hope she is well." "Whom do you mean, ma'am?" he said, colouring a little. "Oh, you know who I mean." "I am particularly sorry, ma'am," he said, addressing Lady Middleton, "that I should receive this letter today, for it is on business which requires my immediate attendance in town." "In town?" cried Mrs. Jennings. What can you have to do in town at this time of year?" "My own loss is great," he continued, "in being obliged to leave so agreeable a party, but I am the more concerned as I fear my presence is necessary to gain your admittance to Whitwell." What a blow upon them all this is. So, as you can see, when she does use the dialogue, she's great. It's very strong, it's to the point. She really, the expression of her characters and her use of words, exclaimed and stuff like that, you can really feel the characters come out. You really, I felt like when I was reading, because I like to read aloud. I don't know if that annoys my neighbours, but I like to read aloud. I immediately found their voices, even though there was so little dialogue. I knew, the difference between the ladies who were sat around in rooms together, talking at the same time. I could hear their voices and everything. So even though Jane doesn't use much dialogue in this book, what dialogue she does use is fantastic. And I think because obviously the only other books I've read of hers are Pride and Prejudice and Emma, there's a lot more dialogue in those books than Sense and Sensibility. So I think you can sense that it's a first book, but what she writes is brilliant, and it's fantastic. The story is great. It's well plotted. It makes you smile. I can't help whenever with Jane Austen, because you instantly get this kind of like soundtrack in your head, or at least I do, because I really love various versions of her stories and such in film and TV, and it just feels very quaint and English and tea party, that kind of thing. So it's really lovely that I get that in my head whenever I read her, and I'm really looking forward to carrying on reading. But yeah, I've had a bit because my head's been a bit funny state. I feel like I haven't absorbed sensibility as I should have done. But then it is a reread. It's not a read. If it was a first read, I would have gone, right, I'm just not going to read for a couple of weeks or something, and I'm just gonna wait until my brain's in a good place and then start it. But because it was a reread, I felt like, okay, I already know these words. I've already been in this world. I feel like I can do it this way and it'd be fine. So going forward, with Pride and Prejudice, the next one, I feel that I am in a better state, and even though it is a reread, it's going to be a reread where I know I'm going to be smiling. I'm going to have that soundtrack playing in my head. I'm going to be really excited to meet certain characters and such that I may not have felt the excitement for when I read Sense and Sensibility. But yeah, it's been an interesting couple of weeks. I'm glad it's over. I'm glad my head is back in a good place, and yeah, I definitely would recommend Sense and Sensibility, even though I've had my head in a bad place. But yeah, it's a good read. Now for adaptations, as I've said in other videos about Jane Austen and such, the two that I recommend are the absolutely fabulous Sense and Sensibility film with Emma Thompson, Alan Rickman, Kate Winslet and Hugh Grant. I absolutely love that. The soundtrack is wonderful. Yes, they made some changes, but the changes are beautiful, and so I don't mind. And the BBC adaptation Sense and Sensibility with Dan Stevens down there with his dark hair before he did Downton Abbey, David Morrissey and Dominic Cooper. This was really well constructed. I like to look at the perspective, the way that it was shot is beautiful. They did a couple of odd things, which I'll accept, but I'm glad that they only happen for a very short period and they're not referred to ever again. So that you kind of go, well, why did you put that in the first place? It's not in the books and it's not being referred to ever again, so what's the point? But they did it. But yeah, I'll accept that and I'll carry on. But it's beautifully shot, and Margaret's got more of an emphasis of her being there. She's always running around collecting shells, running from room to room. You always feel her presence in this drama, which I really like. And for radio drama, you can get the BBC radio collection of all the Jane Austen books. This one for Sense and Sensibility is a bit weird because the version starts when they arrive at Barton Cottage, not getting all of the back stuff. The back stuff is sort of done in sort of flashbacky kind of stuff, but it still works fine. It's a good little radio play. I can kind of understand that rereading it now, because you have like a few pages explaining the backstory of their family, and then them arriving at Barton's cottage. So for this radio play, they've basically taken that few pages out, started when they arrive, and then just refer back to it in a kind of loop, as it were. So it does make sense when you know the book why they've done it that way in this radio play. But I prefer the film and drama version, where they go from when the death happens and you find out how they get to the cottage and then go on with the rest of their story. Okay, that's all I can think to say about Sense and Sensibility. Sorry, I had a bit of a moan and a grumble and such at the beginning, but as I said, I've had a weird headspace with reading, but that is now broken. I am so happy that I've got this time off for the Literature Festival, and yeah, I am going forward. I'm really in a good headspace for reading and excited to carry on reading Jane Austen. So yeah, So that's all I can think to say. If you read this book, I'd love to know what you thought. You can leave me a comment in the comments box below, or give me a thumbs up, thumbs down, entirely up to you, I'll let you decide. And yeah, oh no, I've just remembered, I was just about to say I'll be back with my announcement because I'm on autopilot, but I've already done my announcement video. There is another video that I'm going to film. I probably won't be able to upload it until later on in the week, or maybe even next week, because I saw an amazing exhibit in Oxford that I want to talk to you guys about. So yeah, I will be back with my video about that as soon as I can. Right guys, bye.